Okay, so yeah, we have at the clock. So yeah, so welcome to all everyone. So I am Ashish, and we are part of Azure Talk, which is Azure community over Telegram chat. So you can see the details of our group on the slide that I have shared on the screen. So if you are not part of our group, I will strongly recommend you to join our group and get interact with our community for any type of questions or any type of learning that you want to have in Azure space. So yeah, this is a part of a track that is Microsoft Azure Administrator Associate, which is exam AZ-104. There are multiple sessions aligned. We're having different topics which covers all the aspect of this exam. So if you are not registered for all the session, please go ahead and register for all the sessions so that you can get the complete training, so that you can give the exam with all the topics covered over different sessions. So I will transfer this control to Neeraj, who will be conducted this session, the first part of it. Then we have multiple speakers who will be taking different part of this topic as well as demo session. So yeah, Neeraj, can you please? Yeah.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank you, Ashish. A quick introduction. Let me go ahead and share my slides, and let me know if you can see my slides. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah, we can see your slides now. Yeah.
All right. So thank you, Ashish. Thank you for quick introduction. I welcome everyone into our first session of AZ-104. I really want to thank everyone for taking out time on the weekend, especially on Sunday. I want to extend our warm welcome to all of you. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whichever part of the world you are from. So my name is Neeraj Kumar, and I'm part of Azure Talk team, and I'm the founder of Azure Talk. So we are going to, this session is about AZ-104, Microsoft Azure Administrator. And we have our own community, as Ashish has mentioned, is Azure Talk. So if you're not aware of that, it's IM-based, instant messenger based Azure Talk community. So you can go and join the group. It's a Telegram based group. So basically you can install Telegram app on your mobile app, or you can also join from the browser. So the URL is t.me/AzureTalk. We also have some other Telegram groups also, like O365 Talk for Office 365. And we have for DevOps, Azure DevOps Pro. All those details you can find in our website, azureez.com. So I would highly encourage everyone to go and check out our website. Plus, also, if you have not registered for all the sessions, you will find all those details on to our website. Now, with that, I will dive into our introduction of our Azure Talk core team. And I want to thank everyone, as a part of my team who have come forward to make this possible. I understand right now this current situation because of COVID, a lot of people have lost their job. So we all came together and decided how we can give back and contribute to the community. And that's when we decided why not help people reskill and learn Azure and go and get certified on Azure. That's where they will get the help from us. And after learning Azure and getting certified on Azure, they will be able to find a new job. There are a lot of jobs in cloud space, be it Azure Administrator, be it Azure Engineer, Azure Architect, or Scrum Master. All those roles are available out there, for Azure. So we took this opportunity to really bring all this team together and help the community. I hope you will find these sessions useful. It's totally free, and you don't have to pay anything at all. And we are going to cover. So this session today is going to be the first session. We have multiple sessions lined up. Again, we have more than 8 sessions for AZ-104. Please make sure that you register for all those sessions, and the details you can find on our website, which is azureez.com. If you go there, you will find all those details onto our website. So I highly encourage all of you to go there and register for yourself. Just quickly, I'm Neeraj Kumar. I'm an MCT. I'm also enterprise architect. I'm based out of US. We have Ramurthy. He is based out of Bangalore. He's an architect. He's also an MCT Microsoft certified trainer. Then we have Lalit Rawat. He's an MCT and also MVP. He's based out of Bangalore. Vipin, he's MCT and trainer and also consultant, and he's based out of Delhi. Then we have Girish, he is based out of Germany, and then we have Ashish Raj, you have heard him. He's a DevOps architect and he's based out of Bangalore. So this is our core team. We also have expanded team, but this is the team which is responsible for running the AzureTalk forum. So what are we going to in terms of the today's session? So we have three speakers who's going to help us out. Obviously, I'll be your the first speaker. So I will be joined by Vipin. So Vipin is going to help us with the labs, and also he will pitch in with his knowledge. He has immense knowledge on Azure, so we'll leverage his knowledge too, and then followed by Lalit Rawat. So Lalit Rawat. So all of us will be, working together on this session, and we'll be delivering this session so that you have better experience with today's first session. So in terms of, let's get into the skills measured for this topic. Now, AZ-104, it's for Azure Administrator Associate. Microsoft named their exam with the name code is AZ, stands for Azure, and then for different track they have numbers like AZ-104 is for Administrator Associate, AZ-300 series is for the architect, AZ-200 series is for the developer. So similarly, for Azure Administrator Associate, Microsoft chose to use 100 series. So 104 is the latest. Now Microsoft released this exam recently. Prior to that, it was AZ-103, but now Microsoft has changed the syllabus and they released it new certification, which is AZ-104. In terms of the skills that Microsoft tests you on, they're going to test you on 5 different domains, and as a part of that, you're going to in first domain is they will test you on manage Azure identities and governance, where the questions are around 15 to 20%, and that's the topic that we are going to cover today. We'll focus, today's session is on managing Azure identity and governance. Followed by implement and manage storage. So that's where Microsoft will test you on storage knowledge, which is where it's roughly between 10 to 15%. That's what you will see. Followed by deploy and manage Azure Compute. So Microsoft is going to test you on the compute resources, virtual machines. How do you create virtual machines, provisioning, deprovisioning? That's the majority of things. So they're going to ask a question around 25 to 30%. Then you have configure and manage virtual networking. This is where Microsoft will get into the networking piece of the section, where Microsoft is going to test you on VNet, network security group, subnets, and all those networking components. So we have all the sessions lined up for to cover every objective that we have. And then finally, you have monitor and backup for Azure resources, which consists of around 10 to 15%. Now, we have sessions in future sessions to cover all the objectives. In today's sessions, we are going to cover manage Azure identities and governance. So without any ado, let's dive into what are we going to cover in terms of the agenda that we have for identity and governance in Azure. All right, so we are going to cover quite a lot topic today, starting with we'll talk about what is Azure AD, which is Azure Active Directory Cloud version of Identity Store from Microsoft. We will look into what are the different editions of Azure AD, what are different offerings that's from Microsoft has. Microsoft has 3 different versions, so we'll do a compare and contrast of that. Then how you're going to manage users and groups in Azure AD. Then we'll talk about Azure MFA, which is short for multi-factor authentication. So we'll talk about that and how does, what are the options you have, how can you set it up, and how it helps you to secure your account. We'll talk about self-service password reset. In short, it is called SSPR, which is a feature from Microsoft which lets your user reset the passwords, okay, without having to involve your help desk. Then we'll also talk about the difference, or the two offerings of Azure AD, B2B and B2C, business to business and business to consumer. We'll look deeper into that. Then we have Azure AD Connect. This is the tool using which you enable your hybrid connectivity. You can sync your on-premise identity from Active Directory into Azure AD. So we'll talk about that, and we also have a lab to cover that. Then we'll talk about Azure AD Join, where you can use Azure AD for mobile device management. Then we'll also cover Azure Policy. So Azure Policy is a way to enforce compliance and governance into your Azure subscription that we can do. Then we'll talk about Azure role-based access, RBAC, using which you can control access to different resources in Azure. And then finally, we'll talk about Azure AD roles. There are different roles which are available out there, which you can use to assign permission at the Azure AD tenant level. So that's in nutshell, what are we going to cover today in our session. We want to make sure that we keep it interactive. So if you have any questions, you can post it in the Q&A boxes there, and then our team will be able to respond it. And if needed, we will also take up the questions and answer in during the break time which is dedicated for Q&A. Right. So having discussed our agenda, let's get into to understand what is Azure Active Directory. Right? So Azure Active Directory, if you look at the evolution, if you come from on-premises world, you have Active Directory, which is sitting on-prem. But when you move to the cloud, you also need an identity provider to control access to resources in cloud. That's where Microsoft created Azure AD, not to be confused with on-prem Active Directory. Azure AD is your cloud identity provider, which means if you have to control access to any resources in the cloud, the identity store that's what you're going to use is Azure AD. Okay, using this, you can control access to all your Azure resources. This is your authentication and authorization mechanism. So basically, there are two. The difference between authentication and authorization. So authentication helps you prove your identity. That means who you are. That's authentication. If I can type in my username and password, that establishes that who I am and who I'm claiming to be. So if I'm claiming to be a certain person, then only I will know that username and password. So that's our authentication. And then post-authentication is authorization. Authorization is where you are evaluated whether you have access to perform certain tasks on services in Azure. So that's part of the authorization. You may be a valid user, but you may not have rights to delete or create any resources. You may have only read-only permission. So that section is authorization, where authorization is what duties or what actions you can perform. That's part of the authorization. So both authentication and authorization, Azure AD, we use Azure AD in the cloud for that. And this can control access to Azure portal, where you have all the Azure resources, virtual machines, virtual network, storage, all those things. Plus, it is also the central repository or central IDP for O365, Office 365. Plus, you can also configure it, as an IDP, identity provider for other SaaS services like Salesforce. You can also configure AWS console access, GCP console access using Azure AD. So, using Azure AD, one identity store, your users in your organization can access all the SaaS services, including Azure and O365. With Azure AD, you can also manage your devices. So, Microsoft offers Azure AD MDM capability, Microsoft Device Management, Mobility Device Management capability. So, using that, you can manage that. So, that's something is also a possibility. Plus, Microsoft has two offering, Azure AD B2B and Azure AD B2C. So Azure AD B2B is you will be able to collaborate with your partners who are also leveraging Azure AD. They have Azure AD for their organization. You can invite them. Or if you have users who are using public IDPs like Gmail, Outlook, Yahoo, you can invite them and you will allow them to bring their own email address, and using that they can log into your portal and you can control access to that. So that's also a possibility. Um, in terms of the authentication protocol, these are some of the authentication protocol which are supported. You will notice there is Kerberos is not there. Kerberos or NTLM, if you come from on-prem world, Kerberos and NTLM are on-premise authentication protocol. When you move into the cloud, Kerberos will not work because it requires dedicated connectivity and reach back to your domain controller. Which is not a possibility in cloud. So obviously, when we moved into the cloud, everything is over the internet. So we also had to redo the authentication, and these are some of the authentication protocols, which authentication and authorization protocol that Azure AD supports. So you have OAuth, OpenID Connect is there, then SAML, which is security assertion markup language, and then WS Windows Services Federation authentication. So all these protocols are supported by Azure AD for your authentication and authorization. All right. In terms of understanding Azure AD authentication, how it works, right? So if you look at it on the left side is your on-premise world, right? So on-premise world, you had Active Directory, and they're also calling it Active Directory domain services now running on-prem on a Windows Server box, right? So when you have those, when a user logs in, user is going to provide their username and password, and the machine, user machine will have direct connectivity to your Active Directory servers, and the protocol that you're going to use is Kerberos/NTLM. Mostly Kerberos NTLM is for older technologies or older applications, but mostly we'll use Kerberos, and you directly work with your Active Directory, which is sitting on-prem. Now, when you move to the cloud, that's not a possibility. The reason is you will not allow a reach back from cloud into back to your on-prem directly. You don't allow that reach back. Rather than you can have federation setup. We'll talk about that. But in reality, the Kerberos was not a possibility. So when we moved into the cloud, we moved into the different protocols that Microsoft and plus industry also came up with this authentication protocol, which makes it possible to control access to resources in cloud. And obviously your identity store, if you see there are two identity store, if you see over here, one is Windows Server Active Directory, which is on-prem. It's also, sometimes we also call it IDP, Identity Provider. And plus you also have Azure AD, which is sitting in the cloud. Now, you can have a relationship between Azure Active Directory and on-prem Active Directory, which we'll talk, but you can, in theoretically, you can have your on-prem Active Directory, and then you can have cloud Azure AD, and both can be separate from each other. But for ease of use, you can also have a relationship where you can synchronize identity from on-prem into Azure AD, and that's where all the organization go and implement that. Usually, the larger organization or the enterprises, they would synchronize their identity from on-prem into Azure AD. So that's the Azure Active Directory authentication compared to on-prem Active Directory authentication. So moving on to this slide talks about Azure Active Directory different editions, right? So Microsoft has 4 editions of Azure AD, and some are free and some you have to pay. So for example, the free version you have, if you look at it, there are certain limitations that you have. For example, how many objects you can create. You can create, 500,000 objects. If you need more than that, then probably you'll have to move up to a paid plan like Premium P1 or Premium P2. Plus, also, if you're already an Office 365 customer, so Microsoft, give you Office 365 version of Azure AD, and remember, Azure AD is the central point to control access to any resources in whether it's Microsoft Azure or Office 365 or Dynamic CRM or any SaaS offering that Microsoft has will have inherent integration with Azure AD. So that you should keep in mind. Azure AD is your central focal point, which controls access, which controls authentication, which controls authorization to respective SaaS offering from Microsoft. 100%. Plus, you can also integrate your Azure AD with other third-party SaaS providers. So, if you have Office 365, you don't have a limitation of 500,000 objects. Plus, it's the same as your free version, except that now you can do company branding. Now, company branding is something, you want to change the logo when they're trying to log on, when they go to your federation. So we'll talk about federation too. So that's something you get as a part of Office 365. If you go to Premium P1, so there are certain premium features that you really wanted to do. So that's something you can. So for example, you want to do a group access management. Now you want to create a dynamic group based on certain user attributes. Those are some of the features that you will get as a part of Premium P1. Conditional access. Let's say you want to allow user to access only from corporate network, and if they're outside of corporate network, you prompt them for multi-factor authentication. That's conditional access. So if you're looking for that, then that's something you can you go for Premium P1. That will give you that offering. Now, if you go to Premium P2, you get two additional feature, which is more on the security side. So identity protection and identity governance. All these two features are not available as a part of Premium P1. You have to take Premium P2. So if you go with Premium P2, you get identity protection along with identity governance, and then all the features of Premium P1. So that's something you have to keep in mind when you're taking these versions, when you're taking all this in account. So depending on what's your use case, what's your organizational security posture, you will select different versions of Azure AD. Okay, so that's something you can keep in mind. Now, there are two ways to subscribe to Azure AD Premium version. Either you can individually subscribe to Azure AD Premium version, Premium P2 or P1, or you can also sign up using Azure AD. Microsoft has something called EMS, Enterprise Mobility Suite. As a part of EMS, you get the Premium P2 version. So if you sign up for Azure EMS, you will get Premium P2. So that's something also you can look at. And EMS offers whole more mobility, enterprise mobility and security features than just simple Azure AD. So then moving on to multi-factor authentication, MFA. Now, in regular days, you had a user ID and the password that you use. Now, if a hacker hacks that, then you lose access to all the resources that you have, right? Now, in order to protect the account, what Microsoft has done is Azure AD offers you MFA, which is two-factor authentication. That means something that I have and something that I know. There are two things to it. One is like username and password. That's something I know, which a hacker can steal. But the second portion is something that I have. Now, a hacker cannot steal something that I have. So MFA allows you to allow user to log in with the username and password, and then an additional factor authentication, which requires you to either provide a code via SMS or via an application or via phone, right? So these things, the hacker cannot steal these things from you. They can steal the username and password, but they cannot steal the devices that you have. And that's where the multi-factor authentication comes into the picture. So it's a concept is pretty clear that you have something that you know and something that I have. It's a combination of both. Now, when you log in, you obviously you start with your username and password, but then Microsoft will send you a code, MFA code. Now you can receive MFA code. There are different ways to configure that. Either you can have a Microsoft Authenticator app installed on your mobile device, and that mobile device every 30 seconds it generates a code which you can type in and punch in. That you can do. Or you can use OAuth hardware token. There are hardware token like RSA token that also you can configure, and a user will be required to type in the code from that hardware token. Or you can also allow user to receive SMS on their personal mobile number or office number, whatever it is. So you can also receive the code via SMS. Or user can also, if they want, the Microsoft automated system can call them back and ask them to verify. So all these options are there. If you really want to use MFA, all this makes life easier of the user and at the same time enhances the security posture. So we talked about user, and while we're on the topic of the password, a lot of time, your users can forget the password. Now, when they forget the password, usually they will call the help desk. Now, you don't want the users calling help desk because it can generate a lot of calls and it can consume a lot of man hours, right? So instead of that, what you can do is you can shift the responsibility of changing the password to the user itself. And Azure AD offers this feature for you, which is self-service password reset. In short, it's also called SSPR. So SSPR allows the user, once you configure, your user can go to that SSPR URL, and from there they can change the password. Now, the URL that you have for SSPR, you can go to ak.ms/SSPR, which will take you there. Okay, that's something you can go. You can redirect your user to go to SSPR URL, and from there, once you've configured that, user can log in and reset their passwords, right? So that's something you can do. So they can change their password if they have to. If they are not within CorpNet and they don't have access to domain controllers, they can change the password. They can do a password reset. And if their account is locked out, they can also do an account unlock. So all these things they can do without having to involve help desk. So that's, if you look at an organization, most of the calls from help desk they receive is password change or password reset, or the user has forgotten the password or the account is locked out because they put in wrong passwords, right? That's something you should be aware. So this really eases the burden of the help desk. In terms of different versions of Azure AD, so we talked about the Azure AD editions, and then we have Azure AD. There are two kind of offering that Microsoft has. One is Azure AD B2B, which is business to business. Basically, this is used. Let's say you have two organizations, like organization A and organization B. Both of them have Azure AD or Azure resources in Azure. Now you want to allow these two organizations to have access to resources in your Azure subscription or your O365 or any application that you have developed which leverages Azure AD. You can invite the user from your partner Azure AD tenant. So remember, B2B means business to business. That means both the parties have to have Azure AD. Both the parties should be in Azure and leveraging Azure resources. So for example, you can have your customers. Those customers may also be in Azure. And if you want to grant them access to any of the applications that you have developed, you can invite the user from your partner Azure AD into your own Azure AD. So in a way, once you invite that you can grant the permission to access your application in your own Azure subscription. So you can think about it. It is a federation, kind of federation trust between to Azure AD, Azure AD of your customer and Azure AD of the provider or the vendor, right? That's something you can think about it. So that's how it works. But remember, for B2B, you need to have Azure AD. Your customer should also have Azure AD. If they don't have, then probably you can look at the next offering from Microsoft, which is Azure AD B2C. Now, if you use Azure AD B2C for this, all right, so when you use Azure AD B2C, this is where you can bring your own identity from all the social providers, right? So you can use Facebook, you can use Twitter, and you can bring this. You can retain the same user ID, and using that, you can control access to your any of your applications and that you're trying to access, whether it's an API or it's a web app or it's a mobile app, right? All those things you can control from here. Now that's something you can do that. And the benefit of Azure AD B2C is, well, not only you can use your own personal ID, but it's also a self-service user registration. That means you don't have to pre-create their user IDs, as in case of Azure AD B2B, you have to invite the user. In case of Azure AD B2C, you can allow the user to do a self-service registration, and they can register for yours. So that eases up the burden of allowing user registration. It also helps you, it allows you for customization. The experience of the user registration can be customized, and the sign-in experience, that's something you can do that. That's part of the Azure AD B2C. That certainly is possibility. And you can include your corporate logo and other options, right? So that's something you can do. So that's the Azure AD B2C. We talked about B2B, partner to partner collaboration, B2C between organization and their customers. Okay. All this you can control access to your apps and databases using Azure AD B2C identity. All right, so we talked about different Azure AD. Now let's talk about Azure AD Connect. So now what is Azure AD Connect? So if you look at the traditional way, your identity would be sitting in on-prem Azure Active Directory. That's where your identity is, right? And you want to use the same identity to control access to your Office 365 or Azure subscriptions or any other SaaS provider. You have two options. Either you can create your identity in Azure AD, where user has to remember not only the on-prem user ID, but also the cloud identity. So that's something you can do, where you can go with cloud-only identity model, where the user can exist only in the Azure AD and they have two different IDs. However, that doesn't give you a very good experience to your user. So what you can do is Microsoft has a tool called Azure AD Connect. With that, you can synchronize your on-premises identity into Azure AD. And there are different options that it offers. So basically, to achieve single sign-on, if you want to achieve the single sign-on, that means you allow the user to use the same username, password, seamless authentication, even in cloud. They don't have to remember two identities. Then you can configure Azure AD Connect. And there are different ways that you can do it. So first option is you can do a password hash synchronization. Well, in that case, essentially, a user will leverage the same username and the password, but they don't have to remember a different username or password. The password would be the same. However, this is not typically a single sign-on. It's called same sign-on because technically they will use the same username and password. However, there are two objects of users, one sitting on-prem and one sitting in Azure. Though both have the same password, but technically these are two different user accounts. So it's called a same sign-on, but not the single sign-on. Okay, so then you have second option that you can configure on Azure AD Connect is pass-through authentication, which is a way to achieve a single sign-on. That means that you don't have any actual object in Azure AD. It's just a proxy user object which gets created, but the authentication happens on-prem. So the authentication will user try to log into Azure AD. Azure AD will recognize that this user is sitting on-prem. It will send back to on-prem for authentication. Now that goes through the pass-through, so you have to have a pass-through agent installed in on-premise. So your Azure AD will talk to the pass-through agent sitting on-prem, and which in turn will talk to your Active Directory domain controller. So that's how the authentication will happen in case of pass-through authentication. Then you have federation. If you want to set up federation, you can allow your users to be redirected to your federation endpoint, like Active Directory Federation Services or Ping Federate or Okta. There are different federation services providers, which can be sitting between your Azure AD and on-prem AD, and authentication can happen. So that's also a possibility. Those are the integration points. Then you have synchronization. If you just do a synchronization without any password hash, so that's also options you have. That's something you can do. You can monitor the health of Azure AD Connect, because whenever you create a new object in on-prem, that has to be replicated, that has to be synchronized into Azure AD. So you have to monitor the health. If in case your Azure AD Connect goes on, your synchronization or new object creation, new user that you have created will not be synchronized. So that's something Microsoft offers out of the box for Azure AD Connect. So in terms of, we talked about password hash synchronization. So if you look at password hash synchronization, this is where you will use Azure AD Connect, and it will synchronize the hash, not the actual password. So basically, Microsoft, Azure AD Connect will create hash of hash. It hashes multiple times, and then it synchronizes the hash into Azure AD. Now, any authentication that will happen, user can use the same username and password. Remember, it's the same sign-on, not the single sign-on. If you synchronize the passwords, it's the same sign-on, because from user's perspective, for them it's no difference. Because they are using the same username and password, but the difference is who is authenticating the user. In case of password hash synchronization, Azure AD will be the authenticator. That's your when they're connecting to Azure AD, right? So that's your same sign-on. That's the part of the password hash synchronization. Now, the next one is the pass-through authentication. If you look into the pass-through authentication, the authentication is going to happen in on-prem, which is in on-prem Active Directory. Now, the way authentication works is you have a user, they're trying to authenticate to your Azure AD, obviously, before they can access your application. Your Azure AD will determine that, hey, this user is configured as a single sign-on, SSO is also called SSO. Now, SSO you can configure with two ways: pass-through authentication or through ADFS, Active Directory Federation Services. Both options are available. There are some differences between these two, but if you use pass-through authentication, then you don't need any additional or expensive infrastructure which you needed for federation. The pass-through authentication has a component called pass-through authentication agent that you have to install in your CorpNet inside your network. So you have to make sure that you have a machine running inside your data center, inside your on-premises data center, which can talk to your domain controller. So this authentication agent, which is sitting inside your premises, will have internet connectivity outbound, not inbound. So Azure AD doesn't reach back to pass-through authentication server. Okay, it will always connection will be initiated from pass-through authentication server to Azure AD. Azure AD doesn't reach back. So obviously, a lot of organizations don't allow reach back from internet into their CorpNet. Okay, so this pass-through agent is setting and installed on a machine which has access to your on-prem domain controller. So basically, a user authentication comes into Azure AD. Azure AD, the pass-through agent constantly keeps polling to Azure AD, and they leverages Azure Service Bus in the middle. So the Azure Service Bus. Pass-through agent will retrieve this user login request, take that username and the password that it has received. It will authenticate the user on behalf of the user. It will connect to Azure, your Active Directory on-premise, authenticate the username and password. If username and password is correct, then it will generate. It will get a Kerberos token because it's trying to authenticate on the behalf of the user, and then based on that token, it will generate a SAML token, and it will pass on that. It will pass on that information to your Azure AD. Now, Azure AD, based on that, it will complete your sign-in process. Now, once the sign-in process completed, then from there on, Azure AD takes over for authorization. Whether the user are allowed to access application or not. So that's something you should be aware, right? So this is your pass-through authentication, and this is a kind of example of single sign-on. Now, the same thing, same single sign-on, you can also achieve using federation. Now, the way federation works is you need a federation infrastructure. So you have your on-premise Active Directory. So in this example, it's a Microsoft ADFS, Active Directory Federation Services. So basically, ADFS has two components. One component sitting inside your CorpNet or inside your internal network, and then one component which is ADFS servers, and then one component which is a web application proxy sitting in DMZ, demilitarized zone. So basically, when an authentication request comes in, a user tries to log into Azure AD, the Azure will redirect that user because it will realize that I don't have uh, authority to authenticate this user, rather than this user it comes from a federated domain. So the Azure AD will redirect the user to your federation endpoint. So federation endpoint is a URL, form-based authentication it could be, and that federation URL is hosted on your web application proxy, which is sitting in DMZ. So user will get redirected to web application proxy, which is a ADFS federation, and it will collect the username and password from the user. Remember, the difference between pass-through and the federation is who is collecting the username and password. In case of pass-through authentication, Microsoft Azure AD will collect the username and password, and it will pass on to your pass-through agent sitting on-prem. But in this case of ADFS, the federation endpoint, which is hosted on your server in DMZ, will collect that username and password and proxy that authentication request to your ADFS server. Now, ADFS server in turn talks to your domain controller, authenticates the users, passes on the response to the web application proxy, and then web application proxy goes ahead and creates a SAML token, and the SAML token gets passed on, and then Azure AD uses that. So understand the difference between the pass-through and federation. Both are single sign-on, but in case of pass-through, you don't require expensive infrastructure. But then again, the password collection is done by Microsoft. Obviously, they don't use it. They will not of using it, but let's say if your organization is not comfortable with that and they really your security reasons, you can then in that case you can go with a federation. Plus federation also helps you if you have, let's say you're integrating with other third-party applications, right? So instead of just Azure AD, you also have Azure subscription, you also have Google, you have AWS, and there are other third party also. You want to provide them the federation capability. Well, in that case, probably it would make sense for use, a federation infrastructure, because the pass-through authentication is only for Azure and Azure related resources, or anything that you can integrate with Azure AD. So that's something you can make a call and take a decision. Okay, so we talked about Azure AD. There is another offering from Microsoft, which is Azure ADDS. It's a managed Active Directory domain services. So a lot of time, if you have application which are legacy application and which is not internet, it was not born in the cloud. In that case, if you want to, obviously, if you're using Azure AD compatible application, then you'll have to use SAML and OAuth protocol. Now, in terms of the legacy application, if you have a legacy application which doesn't support this OAuth or OpenID Connect, in that case, it requires Scarborough Sentinel, right? So you have two options. You have one is you can extend your on-premise Active Directory into Azure via, you can create a VPN tunnel between your Azure VNet and on-prem between using the router, you can create a VPN tunnel or you can create an express route. That's one option where your application hosted in Azure can reach back to on-prem. But again, you have to go back and forth, right? That's something you have. Or you can also install domain controller inside Azure. That's also another option you have. Once you have created this extension, you have this VPN in place, your VNet can talk to your on-premise resources. You can set up another domain controller in Active Directory in Azure itself. That's also another option. But let's say you don't want to do that expensive thing, and you are only an organization which has only resources or identities in Azure. Now from there, you want to still leverage the older protocols like Kerberos and CLM. In that case, you can use Azure AD domain where your identity exists in Azure AD. You can synchronize the identity. Remember earlier we synchronized identity from on-prem Active Directory domain services into Azure AD. But let's say your organization, small organization, you have only Azure AD, your users exist in Azure AD, but you have an application which requires Kerberos and NTLM. Well, in that case, you can use Azure ADDS managed domain services, and you can synchronize your identity from Azure AD into Azure ADDS. So that's something, a possibility, and then you can leverage that. It supports Kerberos and NTLM. The protocol that you'll use LDAP. Obviously, that's a protocol. So if your legacy application, that you can use that. There are certain limitations when it comes to on-prem Active Directory domain services. You may not have full control of underlying domain controllers because these domain controllers are managed by Microsoft. So that's something you really require. Well, in that case, you can extend your on-prem Active Directory domain services into Azure. Or otherwise, you can use Azure ADDS managed services from Microsoft. That's something is a possibility. And know the differences between Azure AD, Azure ADDS, and on-prem Active Directory. In exams, they will test you on these concepts. All right, so we talked about Azure AD, Azure ADDS, on-prem Active Directory domain services. Let's talk about these subscriptions, right? So when you are into Azure, if you want to consume any resources, if you want to provision any resources, you need to create subscription. Now, the subscription is a way to interact with your Azure, and it's a way to create Azure subscriptions. Azure is not subscription, sorry, Azure resources, and for that you require a subscription. Now, subscription is basically you go to website or it's called portal.azure.com, and there you will log in. Now, in order to consume your subscription, in order to create resources subscription, you have to first log in. So the control or the gateway to your subscription is your Azure AD. Okay. So first thing, when you go to portal.azure.com, Microsoft will ask you to prove your identity, right? So who you are. So you log in with your, if your administrator has provisioned your user ID in Azure Active Directory, your user, you will log in with that, and based on what permission you have been granted, whether read permission, write permission, owner or contributor, you will be able to perform those. Remember, authentication and authorization. Username password is authentication. Authorization is controlled by the roles that you have been assigned. Different Active Directory roles that your Azure AD roles are there, which can give you the permission. With one Azure AD, you can have multiple subscriptions. You can control access to multiple subscription with single Azure AD. The benefit of this is, let's say your organization has 100 subscriptions. You don't have to create 100 Azure AD. And if you create 100 Azure AD, your user have to manage 100 if you're using cloud only identity. If you're using single sign-on, then it's fine. But remember, again, you have to do a synchronization to multiple Azure AD, and Azure AD Connect has limitations. It cannot, one Azure AD Connect, same object cannot be synchronized into multiple Azure AD. So what you can do is, make things possible, makes things easy, is you can have your single Azure AD, which can be associated with your multiple subscriptions. So with just one single Azure AD can control access to multiple subscriptions. That's your possibility. That's something you can do it. Now, in terms of, if you have within an organization, usually I see organizations, they have one Azure AD tenant, and with that they control access to all of their subscriptions. Okay, that's something you can do. Plus, let's say you're invited to, you remember B2B, right? So if you're invited to some other partners, Azure AD also there, and if they will give you access, you can also have access to their subscription, and you'll use the same username and password because you're invited, you're doing a B2B collaboration. So that's something is also a possibility. Okay, so we talked about Azure AD. Now let's talk about Azure AD Join. Now Azure AD Join is like if you were in on-premise world, you will do a domain join of your computer, right? So when you do a domain join of computer, you're able to control access, or you can basically manage those devices. Same way, you can do you can join your Windows 10 machines and mobile devices into Azure AD, and from there you can control, the management of your devices. Now, this will work if you have Windows deployment. So that's something you can do it if you have devices which are owned by usually organizations. So they will control the access to your laptop or Windows 10 devices or mobile devices that you can do. It's a good way to manage your devices without having to build your own infrastructure. From Azure AD, you can use it, and Azure AD in conjunction with the Intune. If you use Intune product from Microsoft, you can enhance the user experience also and mobile device management. But if let's say you don't have, but at least you can use Azure AD Join, and from there you can control access, and you can also manage your devices using Azure AD Join. That's something you should be aware. Well, you can user can sign in. So if once your user machine is joined to your Azure AD, user can sign in using your regular username and password, which they have, which could be a cloud-only identity from Azure AD, or it could be your synced Active Directory identity that you have using Azure AD Connect. You have synced from on-premise, so that's also a possibility. So all these features are there as a part of Azure AD Join, and it certainly helps you to streamline the user experience, login experience of the user, and also you can manage, the Windows devices. All right. So moving on, so we talked about subscriptions, different and controlling access subscriptions. So there are different subscriptions that you can use, and Microsoft offers different kind of subscriptions. So the first subscription is pay as you go subscription. You just pay out of your credit card, whatever you consume, you pay for that. And if you consume more resources, you fire up more machines, you pay more. Once you're done, you just remove those machines. Your bill goes down. So that's your pay as you go model. As you consume more, you pay more. As you consume less, you pay less. Then you have Microsoft reseller version of Azure subscription. These are, cloud solution provider who are authorized Microsoft reseller. From them also you can buy those subscription. If you have open volume license, if you already have procured open volume license from Microsoft, you can also use that channel to buy your Azure subscription. That's also another possibility. If you already have an existing relationship with Microsoft, as in terms of enterprise agreement, so where you are running Windows Server, SQL Server, Exchange Server, Skype for Business Server, all those, and you are a Microsoft shop, and you already have an enterprise agreement, you can leverage that channel to get Azure subscription. You can get a hefty discount because you already have an existing relationship with Microsoft. So that's something you can look into if, as an organization, you're trying to play with Azure, or you're trying to really evaluate Azure for your cloud journey. In that case, you can talk to Microsoft and they can help you get the Azure subscription. Then you have Azure Dev Test. If you're doing any kind of dev testing that you can do, that you can buy the subscription for Dev Test. And then you have Microsoft Hybrid Use Benefit. Now, Microsoft Hybrid Use Benefit, it allows you to, it's a basically license portability. So if you already have an enterprise agreement, as a part of that, you would have bought certain licenses from Microsoft. So like, SQL Server licenses or Windows Server licenses. you can move those licenses into Azure and save around 40% of cost. So that's something you can do. Microsoft Azure Hybrid Use Benefit that will certainly help you to reduce the cost. Uh, when you create a virtual machine in Azure, you pay for licensing of the operating system and plus the application or like SQL Server that you run, plus the compute charges. So if you use Azure Hybrid Use Benefit, in that case you will be able to bring down. And this is very beneficial if you're Microsoft shop and you have Microsoft agreement. Now this is where it would make sense for you to use Azure, because if you go in AWS or Google Cloud, you will not get this benefit because Azure is owned by Microsoft, and your product, Microsoft product like Windows and Exchange, is also owned by Microsoft. So Microsoft is able to offer you that, and you will get a good around 40% saving. Then we have Azure Gov Cloud. So US Gov Cloud is there. So and plus other government cloud also, and it keeps evolving. So that's if you are more into the government side, you can look into Azure Government Cloud. Then Azure has Azure Germany. So for Azure Germany customers, so if you are sitting in Germany, Germany has a data privacy, data residency requirement where Azure has to maintain the data inside the data center in Germany, in the entire. So for that, Microsoft has come up with the Azure German Cloud. So that's something you can look into it if you're evaluating for the Germany region. So in terms of the, so we talked about subscription. Now, like you can create so many resources inside Azure, right? So probably you want to make sure that you have a governance framework in place to make sure that you're governing the Azure resources. Why would you do governance? Obviously, you want to make sure that when you're creating the resources, it's a structured, it's organized in a way that scalable. Okay, so that's something why you need the Azure governance. You want to standardize. You want to have standard definition of your resources. That's when you will require the Azure governance. Who has created the resources? Like what kind of resources you're creating? You want the standards, you want the template. In that case, you will require the Azure governance, right? You want to control the access and the cost. So all these are some of the choices that you have, which will which are needed as a part of Azure governance. When you go into Azure governance, this helps you with all these, including controlling access, controlling or enforcing any policies that you want. You will be part of the Azure governance. As a part of the governance is a part of the bigger picture. So you have governance, which helps you with the policy management, cost management. You can also set the blueprint, what kind of service and what kind of infrastructure that can be deployed. So it helps you with that, and then you go on from there. You have the complete picture. You can do this security analysis. You can do security management and threat protection. You can use RBAC to control access to that. So using that, you can secure your access to your resources. You do the protection using the encryption and disaster recovery and the backup. You will have backup of your machines, making sure that in case the virtual machine goes down, you can using backup, you can restore that. You can do encryption in transit and encryption at rest, both the options you have. You want to monitor your infrastructure. So Microsoft has tools, Azure Monitor. Using that, you can monitor the app and infra. All those monitoring is possible. And then you also have configuration management. You can do automation. You can Azure Automation account. Using Azure Automation account, you can do automation. You can do scripting, and also the configuration there, Chef, Puppet, all those tools. Using that, you can do the configurations. As a part of Azure governance, it's a holistic picture which includes governance, security, protection, monitoring, and configuration. So that's it's like what consists of the Azure governance. So having talked about Azure governance, as a part of that, Microsoft has Azure Policy. Using Azure Policy, you can control what can be done or what is allowed. For example, you can say that okay, users can only create resources in US East region, but not in any other region. So you may have data residency requirement which provides the user. If let's say user creates the resources in Europe or in APAC region, that could violate your data privacy requirement, data residency requirement. Then in that case, you can use Azure Policy. Azure Policy helps you with enforcing those. So basically, you can have a set of policies and you can apply those policies at different level. You can apply the policy at the resource group, you can apply the policy at the subscription level, all those options you have. So once you define the policy, it not only it prevents the user, but also let's say if somehow user creates an uncompliant resources, it will do an evaluation and generate a report and enforce the compliance also, right? So that's something it's a part of the Azure policy you can do. Some of the advantages you have using Azure policies, you can enforce, as I said, at the time of creation itself, you can enforce that, and it will ensure the compliance of your resource creation. You can apply policy. So you not only can apply policy to certain resource group, but let's say if you want to apply to all the resource group inside subscription, you can apply the subscription level, or apply at the management group level also. So you can apply the policy. You don't have to apply the policy at individual resources level or resource group level. You can go up level 1, and you can apply the policies at the resource group as well as Azure subscription and management group. It also offers a remediation. So in terms of the Azure policy, how you go about defining the policy. So when you create the policy, you have to first create policy definition. Now, policy definition is where you have individual policies. So for example, one policy definition could be allow user resource creation only in US East. That could be. Second policy could be only allow certain kind of SKUs to be VM to be created. Third could be they only allow standard storage account to be created, or standard SSD based storage account to be created. So all these policies you can define into that, and you can combine that all together into something called initiative definition. And when you combine multiple policies under initiative definition, you can apply those policies time and again to different resources and resource groups in your subscription, right? So that's something you can do. Now, in terms of the policies that you have, so obviously you have to first create policy definition. There are already policy definitions which are out there, but you want to write your own custom, you can do that. And then you combine, you collect all those policy definition, you pick and choose, and create a bouquet of the policies. And that bouquet of policies is called initiative definition. So you have initiative definition, and then you can apply that bouquet of policy to different resources. That's something you can do with that. Then you can specify where that initiative definition is going to be applied. Now, that will be like at the subscription level, that will be at the resource group level. You can specify the scope of your initiative definition. That's something you can do, right? You can look at the evaluation results. So obviously, that's something you can look at it, and you can go and verify if there are any compliant, non-compliant resources. So that's something you can certainly do. And as a part of Azure policy, when you go into the portal, you will be able to create the Azure policy. Now, when you create the Azure policy, there are different options that you can do. For example, there are policies which are available from the GitHub that you can import. That's something, a possibility out there. From there, you can import those policies from the GitHub. If these policies are written in JSON, Java Service Object Notation, so that's something you should keep in mind. If you want to write your own, you should be familiar with JSON, and using that, you can write your own policies. That's something you can do. You can write your own custom policy definition. As I said, you have to write it in JSON. It can, as I said, initiative definition can be combination of multiple policies. So that's something you should be. And when you're creating these policies, you need to have a deliberation at organization level. You want to make sure that you have consulted every business unit within your organization to really come up with, and you have to work in consultation with information security, to come up with restrictions that you want to enforce, the policies that you want to enforce, the compliance that you want to, the desired level of compliance that you want, and then plan with that and then implement those policies. Okay, so in terms of the subscriptions, right? So we talked about subscriptions. So subscription, the unit is the billing container, is that's where everything starts. You go to the portal, from there you start working on this, right? Inside the subscriptions, if I go from, let's bottom up, you have resources, you create resources. All those resources are, categorized inside a resource group. It's called container. You can think about it as it's a container to keep all your resources together, all your related resources that you can put it inside the resource group. It's also an administrative boundary where you can assign permissions at there. So multiple resources can be inside a resource group. One resource can only be attached to one resource group. It cannot belong to multiple resource groups. Then, in a subscription, you have multiple resource groups. You can create multiple resource groups. Those are the different, and each resources are created in separate locations. So that's something you should be aware of. Now, for ease of management, if let's say you have multiple subscriptions, all those subscriptions can be clubbed together into something called management group. So you can have you can combine, for example, let's say your finance department has multiple subscription. You can create a management group for finance department. If let's say you have HR department has multiple subscription, you can combine all the subscription of HR department into a management group of HR, and you can apply the policy at the management group level. So then in that case, all the subscriptions which are under the management group will inherit those policies. So that's something, it makes life easier for an administrator, for to the security consultant or security architect to enforce those policies at the large scale. So that's something you should be aware of it. And in case of management group can be nested. So one management group can be inside the another management group. That's something you should be, you can do that. So basically you have another management group inside that, you can have second management group. That's something is also possible. So the hierarchy is, you have resources in, resource group. So inside the resource group, you have multiple resources. Inside subscription, you have multiple resource group, and then a management group is basically you have multiple subscriptions. That's a container. Management group continuing. So basically, these are some of the features. You can align your subscriptions to your organization. Obviously, as I said, department wise, you can have. If you're creating a management group, it can take time. So just be aware of the fact it can take up to 15 minutes. So that's something you should be aware of. You can apply the cost management policy. That's also one of the use cases where you can restrict, you can assign a budget and say that HR department cannot exceed $1,000 a month. All those things you can control using management group. You can manage the policies. We talked about the compliance across multiple subscription that you can do. You can apply the policies. That's something you can do. In terms of how many management groups you can create up to 10,000 management groups. So that's a really big number. Okay, so that's something you can do if you have so many subscriptions. In terms of the Azure role-based access, so role-based access, as its name suggests, you have different roles. Based on the roles, you will control the access. It's a simple English language, role-based access control. So access control is you're controlling access to your resources, and how you're controlling is based on the role that you're given. So Azure has different roles. So these 3 roles which you see, plus there are other custom roles too also, which are available out of the box. Plus you can write your own roles if you really want to do that custom roles, you can do that. So owner permission gives you full access. You can do everything. You can create, delete, you can assign permission to other also. That's your owner permission. Contributor is where you will be able to manage resources. You can delete, you can create, but you cannot provide access. You cannot add another user as a contributor or as an owner or as a reader. That's something you cannot do. That's your contributor role. Reader it's a viewer permission. Just you will have read-only permission. You cannot make any changes. You will only be. So for example, if you have an auditor, right? They want to audit it, probably will assign them the reader permission. Contributor permission, you will give it to your admins who are creating the resources and all. The owner permission will be probably with the senior operations or the senior team, who will require that. So basically, that's how you can segregate that. The permissions can be assigned at the subscription level. So if you assign a subscription level, all resource groups inside the subscription will inherit that. Or you can assign at the resource group level. If you do that, then all these resources inside that can be inherited. And then you can also apply at the resource group. Resource level. Now, instead of resource, you will apply usually at the resource group level. You will delegate the permission. So basically, you will use this for permission delegation, the different roles that Microsoft has to offer. Okay, then moving on to our resource tag. So any resources that you create, you can create a tag for that. Those tag helps you, determine the costing. So for example, let's say you have one subscription shared by multiple departments or multiple applications, and you want to determine what is the cost of application A, application B, you can create a tag. Tag is key value pair. So you have a key and you have a value. Always, like for example, you can have a key owner, and then you can assign the owner as your department head. That could be the owner. The department, it could be HR, finance, all environment could be dev, QA, and all those. So always, you can come up. There are different tagging strategies that you can come up with. You can also have application tag, application name. You can have cost center. Based with that, basically you can identify who you're going to bill it internally. All those information you can do it. So, and always it's a good practice to have tags. At least ensure that you have owner, department, and environment. In case of there is any problem with the resources, and you can always contact the owner, right? So that's something important. And tags easily helps you to organize your resources. Also, in the billing, you can segregate those the billing level. Okay. Then moving on to, since you're going to consume resources in Azure, right? So you also need a way to visualize your costing. So Microsoft has cost management portals in Azure subscription itself. If you go there, you can perform a cost analysis, how much you have consumed versus how much is budgeted for you. If you're exceeding the budget or you're about to, reach the threshold, you can also alert the user or the department owner about that. So that's something you can do, and it's a very graphics rich dashboard, which you can grant access, you can grant read access to the users or your management, and they can just log in and they can see, okay, how much we have consumed, what's the spend for this month look like, and what is the projected spend. So all those things you can look into Azure Cost Management, and it's certainly a go-to tool for management to look into the costing and how much they're spending on a monthly basis. Okay, so we talked about RBAC, role-based access control, and this is where you look at the roles. We also looked at those roles. Now, here these roles are specific to Azure AD. What you can do in Azure AD. Okay, so if you have different roles, for example, you can create a user, you can delete users, you can assign different roles inside Azure AD. So it's basically at the Azure AD level. Remember, in on-prem world, you had enterprise admin, you have domain admin, schema admin, all the same kind of roles. Similar, not same, a similar role is, so basically this will control access what you can do inside Azure AD. Okay, the roles that we talked about, owner, contributor, all those were roles for the subscriptions, what you can do inside the subscription on the resources, right? So that's something you, but in case of this role, so there are different roles that you can use. So you have global administrator, which is like, the most powerful role that you can ever have. It can do remove, delete, even delete the tenant also. That's a global admin can do that. That's something you should be aware. Then you have service administrator role. Then you have billing administrator role is basically responsible for billing. They can visualize and they can manage the billing, the credit card information, all those information that you can do. So these are different roles that you have. You have global administrator, service administrator, billing, and plus there are other roles also depending on if, let's say, you sign up for Azure AD premium features. So those premium features also has their respective roles inside Azure AD. That's something you will see as a part of your Azure AD. So these are different roles which controls access to what you can do inside Azure AD tenant, but not onto the subscription. Okay, for subscription we have different roles. So you can see the difference between the two roles, right? So RBAC role is for Azure resources. AD roles is for Azure AD resources. What you can do with users, groups, and in terms of the scope, if you look at it, you can specify the RBAC role at management group, subscription, resource group, or resources. In case of Azure AD, it's only one tenant, the tenant that on which you, so Azure AD is the only scope. Can you write custom roles? Yes. In RBAC roles, you can. In AD roles, no, it's not supported. Okay, so that's something you should be aware of, the difference between RBAC roles and Azure AD roles. So with this, I think this is the last slide, and we can take a 10 minutes break and we can open a Q&A session, while we are in the break. And post break, we will resume with our lab session where, Vipin and Lalit is going to assist us with the lab session that we're going to do. Ashish, we can take a 10 minutes break, and then after 10 minutes, we can resume with our labs.
Yep, sure. So I have opened the Q&A session for some time, like next 2-3 minutes or maybe 5 minutes based on the questions that we are going to get. I will ask all the participants to post questions related to today's agenda so that we can answer as much we can. We will take outside of the scope questions for further sessions that we have. So we are having, this is the first session in this track. We will be covering different topics in different upcoming sessions. So yeah, please go ahead. We are getting flooded with the questions. So let me start publishing and let the speakers answer those questions. So, okay. I will also, Neeraj, would you like to answer some of the questions, on the audio, or do you want to answer those in the chat?
Sure. I mean, if some questions we can take up right now, probably people will in break. It will be good if we type in the chat. That will be easier.
Okay, so let me, because some of the people will be away. So let's handle it on the chat. Maybe we will take this, interactive Q&A later in the session. All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, people, please go ahead and start pushing in. I will be publishing all the questions, and then speakers will be answering those questions one by one.
All right, let's resume the session. So what we are going to do is, I hope you're back. So next is up, for the demo, and as a part of the demo, we're going to cover, quite a bit of topic, and I will be joined by Vipin and Lalit. Both of them will help us out with the demo, and we're going through the different tasks. The first task is going to be part of creating Azure AD users and how you can create dynamic groups. So dynamic group is where you populate user based on certain attributes, and then how you can add the users into those dynamic group. Then Vipin is also going to walk us through how to set up Azure AD Connect. So basically, as a part of the setup, we are not going to build the on-premise infrastructure. We will assume that we already have a set up on-premise, Active Directory in Azure, and we're using that as a notion that we have on-prem Active Directory, and we will synchronize into Azure AD using Azure AD Connect. Followed by we have a lab for how you can delegate role assignment using RBAC at the resource group level and at the resources level. Then we'll also look into how you create Azure Policy and the tags with Azure resources. That's something we will see those labs in action. Then we'll look into Azure Resource Costs in the Cost Explorer, which Microsoft offers. You can go there, and Lalit will walk us through that. Then you have how you can use a resource log. So Azure Resource Group has a resource log. You can set that so it can prevent accidental deletion of your resource group, which contains all your important resources. So that's something team will do. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'll hand it over to Vipin, and Vipin will start with our first lab. So Vipin, would you mind sharing your screen?
Yes, Lalit. So I'm just sharing my screen now. Hello, everyone. So we will start with our first lab. In this lab, what we are going to do, we are going to see that within Azure, in Azure Active Directory, that is a cloud-based identity service by the Microsoft, how we create some user on cloud, that is on Azure AD, and then further we will create some dynamic groups. We'll see what is the dynamic group and what is the benefit for that. And then we'll carry forward for our Azure AD Connect that will help us to synchronize our hybrid environment of our on-premises Active users will be synced to the cloud Azure AD. So these are three things that I'm going to show you one by one. So first of all, this is the Azure portal. Whenever you subscribe for your Azure account and you log into this, you have one default directory, one default tenant. And on the left hand side in the Azure Hub menu, you see the same option that Azure Active Directory. If you click on that part, you will have all the options related to the Azure Active Directory. In our concept session, Neeraj has already explained that we have several different plans, different editions of Azure AD. The topmost edition is generally the premium P2 editions that gives us a lot of benefit. I have already activated that plans so that I can show you some of the benefit, like the dynamic group is one of the feature that we can see only in the premium plans. That takes some time, so I have already activated that. So for the first time, if you people would be doing it later on, if in this Azure Active Directory Blade, you will see all the features which is related to the premium plans or paid plans will be grayed out. And that will give you a warning message. To get this benefit, you need to activate your premium plans for Azure AD. Okay, and once you click on that activate, it takes some time for a first time to get that reflected. Okay, to save the time, I have already got that thing activated. Okay, let's begin with the session. In this Azure Active Directory, we'll see the first option that within the manage section that is called as the Azure Manage, then user. This is a blade from where you can create the users manually. Okay, I already have some of the users. I'm going to create some more users and we'll show you that how it is correlated. So my first user that I'm going to show you with the button of the plus new user, you have option to create a users new in your directory, or you can invite the user from the some different domain, different Microsoft Azure AD or Microsoft account that we call it as a guest user. So this is for the guest user. Right now I'm using the create user, creating a new. And here I'm writing the name as a demo user 1. Just after the username, you would see that the UPN, that is the universal principal name of the user, is written as like a this is my some domain name, then .onmicrosoft.com. Okay, so whenever you subscribe for your Azure account, this will be your first default directory. Okay, for a lab, for testing, for POC, this is fine enough. Okay, but in any enterprise, in any organization, people will not be using this Microsoft branding. They would be preferring that why I would create a user that would have a UPN, user principal name, like at onmicrosoft.com. I would be preferring this should be my username at the rate of mycompany.com. So that we call it as a custom domain name. We'll have a look on that, how we can have that options later on post creating this user. Okay, as of now, I'm keeping it as a default. So this demo user one is my first user. I'm keeping the same user, demo user one as a name and the username. You can keep the first and last name. I'm using the mandatory options only right now. Then you have the option called password. And password, if you select the option auto-generated, Azure will create a default password. It would be any random password like this one, or you can create your own password. So I'm selecting to create my own password for this user. Then post this password option, you will see the option called groups and role. So group will be Azure Active Directory groups. We'll create a groups just after this particular options, and role is the Azure AD role that Neeraj discussed during the concept session. That will give you the different delegations, and you will have a short lab again post this Lilith will carry on that particular things. So I'm leaving this role as a default role. I'm not giving any additional privilege to this particular user. If I want to give any additional privilege, like in Azure, the highest privilege is a global admin privilege. Okay, and you have a limited administrator access as well. If so, I just show you, like if I click on the user, so it will show me all the respective roles here based on your business requirement that this user would be performing this kind of business task. This would be the job profile for this user. You can assign that respective role to that particular user. I'm creating this user as a normal user, not any admin user. So that's why I'm not giving any access to this particular user. Keeping the sign in option as loud. And what would be the user's location? For my subscription, I'm selecting this as a United States right now because I have some feature that I'm going to show you up in upcoming that will be available in that particular locations only. United States. And job title. So I'm keeping the job title as a demo admin. Okay, so keeping it as a demo admin or demo cloud admin. Department is IT, and let's create this user. Similarly, I'm creating one more user with the same way. Demo user 2. Demo user 2. Keeping the same UPN. Selecting the password with my own option. No group as of now. I'm not giving any group membership to this user. I'm not defining any role for this user. Location, I'm selecting again United States. Job title for this user, I'm selecting it as a, let's suppose, system operator, department IT, and click on create. Okay, now if I come back to the previous page where I will see those demo use. If you will notice that these are the two users at the bottom, demo user 1 and demo user 2 are created. Now I'm coming back to this default directory page once again and going to create one group. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new group. In Azure Active Directory, you will see that there are the two types of group. One is security and one is Office 365. So security means you would be using this particular group for defining any kind of permission, defining any kind of delegation anywhere within the Azure. Okay. Office 365 is the group that helps you for accessing your Office 365 SaaS based applications. Okay. So that's not for your permission, that's for that particular purpose. If your need is to define any kind of delegation or permission, you should select the security. I'm selecting the security, defining the group name as my cloud admin demo cloud admin. And here you will see the membership type. In membership type, we have assigned and dynamic user. So what if I select the option assign, it means I need to assign the user to this group. I need to add or remove the member to this group manually every time. If I select the option dynamic user, dynamic means I will set some rule and based on the rule, it will dynamically add the user in this group. For example, we recently created a few users and defined their job title as the cloud admin, network admin, sysops admin. Okay, so if I define some rule that if any user has a job title as a cloud admin or any user which has a department of finance, any user which has a department of this thing, so based on some attribute, I can define some rule that we call it as a dynamic query, and the user will be automatically added to this group. So further, I have option to add it as an honor. I'm leaving it as a default. I'm not adding any specific honor and clicking on the dynamic query. In this dynamic query, you will see this is the option where we create a rule. So you need to specify the property. Okay, on which property it will check. So I have many things. Account is enabled, disabled. What is the display name? What is city, department, location? Okay, we have many attributes. Okay, based on that, you can define this rule. I'm selecting the job title right now, choosing. And then what would be the operator? What would be the comparison operator? How this rule will be evaluated? So I want whenever a job title is equals to, you can define. Okay. For example, we created the job title for that user is a demo cloud admin. This was the job title for my one user. Okay. And then you have to click on the save here. Okay, so at the top you will see the save option. Once you click on save, then you click on the create. What we did as of now, I simply created two users. I simply created one group that has a dynamic rule. Okay, but I have not added any user in that particular group manually. Okay, if I go to that particular group, let's suppose if I go to this demo cloud admin and I see the member, I will still don't see any member added to this. The reason for this is this dynamic group is a feature of premium Azure AD. And in Azure Active Directory Blade, you will see one option called licenses. Okay, in this licenses, you see all product. And this is the topmost license, like you have a P2, similarly you have EMS E5 license also, okay, which has your Office 365 bundle license. If I click on that, then you see the option called assign. So what you have to do, you have to assign this particular license to that user or to the group where this dynamic rule should work. Okay, so this dynamic group will work only if that particular user has this license. So we created a user, but we have not assigned this particular license to the user. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to assign this license to the group. I will click on assign. Then I will click on assign license and select the user. So my username was demo user 1 and click select. Okay, and click on assign option. So you will notice that this user has this particular license now. Okay. Now go back to the directory, go back to the users, and if I select that demo user 1, see his group, I will see that this user is automatically added, right? So this is the beauty of using this dynamic group. Every time you don't need to worry about. You may have hundreds and thousands of groups in your organization. You want that whenever this user is working in this department or any new employee join to your organization or leave the organization, you don't have to manage this group thing every time manually. Just set some rules, create the group, assign these licenses, and it will happen automatically. So see, now this user is a member of this particular group now. Okay. The next thing, what I'm going to show you to create the user in one another way in Azure Active Directory. So I will again go to the user. I have manually created one user in the Active Directory, demo user 1, with the option of new user. If I click on new user, I have an option for a create user. Okay, and there I see one link called I want to create a user in a bulk. So if you have a requirement to create a user in a bulk, select this option. And one thing I would like to notify you all people that Microsoft is continuously doing the service improvement. So it is possible that at some time later on, if you try to do the same kind of activity, this option may be at some different place. Like this option for creating this bulk was at this particular place in some time before. You have the option to bulk user here. Okay, now they move the option to within the new user option. So I'm clicking on this particular option. Okay. Generally, whenever we have to do some bulk activity, we think that, oh, I should know some kind of coding, I should know some PowerShell or some scripting language so that I can automate my work. I can do a lot of work in a very quickly. Yes, that's right. But in today's life, there are the tools, there are the providers who try to make the things easy and simplified for the people. Okay, so even all the people who are not so much expert in that respective tool, they should be able to do more and more kind of work. Okay, so using this bulk option, you don't need to be any coder. Microsoft will give you a ready template. Like here, Microsoft will give you an option. Okay, download this template, and this is one CSV file. And in this CSV file, you simply fill your detail, your username, what password you want to provide to that user, every detail. Okay, and once this detail is full, you simply select this option, browse that. So I show you that how this file look like. I've already downloaded it. This file is already prepared. Okay, so I have these are the headers of the column like name, username, initial password, what will be the first name, job title. There are many options. I filled only some of the important things. Okay, and I have around 18 users listed in this template. So what I will be doing, I will select that file from here, select this thing, click open, and then click on submit. Once you click on submit, you will see there is a progress going on. It takes only a few minutes to complete your activity, and you will be notified in the notification location as well in the portal. The bulk operation succeeded. Let's go back to the default directory. Let's see the users. And you will see all these users, users 10, user 2, user 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are created from this bulk operation. Okay. I'm going to explain the other of the column, that what is the source and all. Once I will show you the Azure AD Connect. So this is how we create a users manually, how we create a users from bulk operations from the portal. There are many other ways. If you are expert in CLI, if you are expert in PowerShell, you can use those forms of solutions as well. Coming back to the default directory. In this default directory, I have the last option, which is known as a custom domain name. So this custom domain name is a what? If you have your own domain, which is a publicly routable domain, it's not like your internal domain, which is non-routable domain. So you can add your custom domain only if it is a public routable domain. So you will come here and click on add custom domain. Once you come to this add custom domain option, I need to provide like mycompany.com. So if my company's domain is mycompany.com, I will tell to Microsoft that, see, whenever I'm creating a user, I don't want that my username should be like username on Microsoft.com. I would be preferring to do my own branding. I want my company name. Okay, I'm assuming this mycompany.com is my actual name, actual domain name, and click on add domain. Once you click on add domain, Microsoft will question you. Okay, you are saying that mycompany.com is your domain. Okay, so randomly, if anyone will type any name, what does it mean? Microsoft will accept? No, Microsoft will not accept. Microsoft will confirm that, okay, if it is really your domain, you just confirm that you are owning this domain. You are the owner of this particular domain. And how you can prove that? For that, Microsoft will give you some of the DNS record value. Okay, it could be either TXT record or MX record. And Microsoft will say, if you are owning this domain, then you would be definitely having the DNS management of this domain. So go to your DNS server and create this record in your DNS server. And now when I say the DNS server, it means that should be a public DNS server. There are organizations who have their own DNS server in DMZ zone, which is a public facing, internet facing. If you have that one, you will be creating the DNS record with this particular value. If you do not have that, it is possible that you are owning the domain, but your organization does not have any DNS server which is in DMZ zone, which is internet facing. There are many small organizations who do not have that. But in that case, you would have purchased a domain from some of your domain registrar. So from whichever domain registrar you have purchased the domain, they provide the DNS management portal to you for your respective domain. Go there. That would be generally a browser-based management portal. Go there and create a DNS record with these value. The moment you provide these detail on that DNS server and create a record, come back after that and click on verify. Okay, I see that could not find the DNS record. Yes, I've not created any record. Okay, I'm just assuming that this is my server and this is particular one my domain. So in that case, what will happen? In that particular case, if you do not verify the domain, you will see the status of this domain is unverified. Okay, so this is just for a demo purpose. If you the steps are the same. If you own the domain, it will be verified. Okay. So till the time it is not verified, you can't use this particular thing. The first thing is that you need to verify this domain. So as of now, we covered custom domain. We covered users in Azure Active Directory. We covered dynamic groups and premium licenses assignment to those users. Now, the next thing what we are going to do, we are going to see that how the users are synchronized from your on-premises Active Directory. There are many organizations who have not used the cloud services as of now. They might be thinking that from now onward, we would be moving to the cloud. They already have around lakhs of users in their own Active Directory. Okay, so in that particular situation, to have the benefit of the cloud services, to gain the access on the cloud applications and all, if they create a user account again in the cloud, that will be a headache for the organization. So for that purpose, what they do, they use Azure AD Connect and synchronize their existing identity. Okay, so that is a benefit. For that, what we require one on-premises domain controller. I have already built that. So this machine is my on-premises domain controller. Second, we required one Azure account. So this is my Azure account. Next requirement is we would be needing the highest privilege in both the domain. So in your on-premises Active Directory, you should be having the highest privilege to perform this activity. And Microsoft Azure Active Directory, the highest privilege is enterprise admin access. So if you are enterprise admin, then only you can perform this task. Second thing is in Azure Active Directory, the highest privilege is the global admin access. So we would be needing two credentials. One is global admin access of my Azure AD, and we would be needing the enterprise admin access for my on-premises Active Directory. Okay, I have already set up those environments to save the time. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you that how does it look like. For this particular activity, Microsoft provide one tool which is known as Azure AD Connect. It's freely available from Microsoft website. You can download it, and the installation is also very simple. There is no specific question asked respective to the installation. Only the option that you need to fill is related to the Azure AD Connect configuration. Okay, so it's a simple MSI installation. The installation is already done, and this is my Azure AD Connect. Okay. You can perform the same activity repeatedly on the same server for a practice or even in the production if you have to do any changes from your previous configuration. Okay, so if the installation is done and you want to reconfigure it, the moment you open this Azure AD Connect, it will ask you for a configure. In this configure option, I have the option called configure synchronization option. In this customize synchronize option, if I click on next, okay, so from here this would be the same window if I would have installed it for a first time. Okay, so this is just for the people to understand that even if I'm doing it from scratch, so this would be my first window. Okay, so it will ask you for the two credential as I explained. So first it is asking me, okay, you provide the credential for your Azure AD and the highest account. I have already created one Azure account with this name. I'm providing this credential. Then the moment this particular credential is verified, okay, the moment my cloud Azure AD credential is verified, it will ask me for the credential for my on-premises ID. So it is asking, okay, enter the connection information for your on-premises Active Directory. If you have a multiple domain environment, you have one root domain, some tree forest environment. In that particular case, you can select from the drop-down menu that you want the synchronization for which particular domain. Okay, this Azure AD Connect can be installed in the domain controller or you can install this on any member server. But the machine has to be in that particular domain with the server operating system. Click next. And now, so just because in this machine I have already added, so that's why it is not asking me for my on-premise admin credential. It's already authenticated. If I click on next, now it will ask me for whether you want to do this synchronization for your entire organization, or you want to do it for your a specific one. Like in my Azure, in my on-premises Active Directory, I have created some OU, I have created some user. Do I want to sync my all users, or you want to sync only some user? You want that user from this particular OU to be synced to the cloud, or user from this particular group should be synced to the cloud, or user for this particular with this particular attribute. So we have filtration based on the OU level, group level, and the attribute level as well. I'm keeping it as a default right now and showing to the next. Okay, then here you select, okay, for synchronization, you have different options. Okay, we already discussed the concept. Neeraj explained this during the concept session. Okay, like you can synchronize using your password hash synchronization. You can select your pass-through synchronization. You can synchronize using federation. So you have to select that respective option from here. There are some options which are based on the premium plan, like the password write back. Okay, this would be your premium plan. So if you have Azure AD on the cloud, then only this will Azure AD premium on the cloud, then only this particular feature will work. So I'm leaving it as a default right now, not changing anything. Clicking on the next, and it will be ready to configure. It will take some time, and during that time, what it will do, it will create a service account that will synchronize regularly. Okay. And the moment I click on configure, it takes few minutes of time and it synchronizes my all the identity which I have selected. Okay. I am clicking on the configure, let it synchronize. For the first synchronization, it takes some time, a few minutes of time, 1 to 2 minutes, depending on that how many objects you have in your directory. So it takes some time. So yes, the configuration is complete. Click on exit. Now come back to my Azure portal. In my Azure portal, if I again go to my Azure Active Directory, go to the user. Okay. Now here I will see all the users which I have. Okay. You will notice in this blade at the last column, there is an option called source. In this source, you will see some users are sourced from Azure Active Directory. And if I scroll down, there would be some user account that are sourced from the Windows Server AD. Like this on-prem user 1, on-prem user 2. I have already created this in my on-premises to save the time. I will show you that these users were created in this particular OU. On-prem user 1, on-prem user 2. Okay, so these are coming from your on-premises Active Directory. Okay, this can have a lot of things within Azure Active Directory. This was some demo to start with working on Azure Active Directory and Azure AD Connect. We have many options to explore within Azure AD Connect. Okay, I've shown you with the default UPN. We can change the UPN of the user in our Active Directory as because it is possible in your organization you have a non-routable domain. Like in my scenario, my on-premises Active Directory is my non-routable. It is not on public. This is my AZ-104demo.com. Okay. In my cloud, I have my different domain, my on Microsoft, my domain.onmicrosoft.com. Okay. So in this particular case, the moment the user will be synced on the cloud, the user will have a UPN ID like see this on-prem user one at the rate of this cloud domain name. Okay, so either I need to change the UPN of the user in my on-premise environment, or there are some organizations who have a same domain internally and they use the same domain registered publicly. In that case, from the user end, this will not be a challenging case. I show you that how you can change the UPN in that particular case. If it is the case for any organization in your on-premises Active Directory, you will be having your active domain interest snap in, and there you can add the additional domain like my AZ19.on.1519. So if I click this particular thing, post that, if I go to any user's property, I can do it using some partial script for multiple user in one shot or for all users. So in users account tab, we have option that user have this particular UPN now. So from the user's perspective, user will not be confused that I have two different domain IDs. Okay. So this is all about the Azure AD synchronization, how the users are synced. This is the service account which is created that will take care of the synchronization thing. And all these users coming from Azure AD created from Azure AD. Any user that appear as a Windows Server AD like this one, like this particular one, are synced from the local one. The third type of user identity that you can have in your Azure AD is your guest user. So we have seen cloud identity that we created on Azure directly. Second, synchronized identity that we synchronize from our on-premises infrastructure, on-premises Active Directory. And the third one, you can invite user from some other Azure AD or from Microsoft account. That is known as a guest user. Okay, so if you want to add anyone in your Active Directory, okay, from a different directory, which is the user who is not a part of your domain, not a part of your Active Directory, you can add those user here also, and then further you can give some kind of access in your respective application or those things. Okay, for that you need to click on new guest user. In this new guest user, you have to send the invitation to that respective person. How you will send the invitation? You will simply write the email user account for that particular person, like my guest at outlook.com. Okay, so if I write my guest it can be some different directory as well, like in some different Azure AD also. Okay, you are just inviting the other person. The moment you mention the email and click on invite, that particular user will get a mail notification that you have invited him or her in your Active Directory, in your Azure Active Directory. Okay, and the moment he accepts your invitation, and then in your Azure Active Directory, if you again go back to the users tab, you will see that person will be here shown, okay, as a guest account in this particular column. User type, in user type you will see that particular is a like this. I have already invited on this particular account, accepted the invitation on this particular account. Okay, so the user will be shown as a guest account. Okay, this is a guest type of account. So this is all about our Azure Active Directory and Azure AD Connect. Okay, now the further we have some governance sessions, labs related to Azure governance, cost management. Okay, and Lalit will take care on that particular thing further.
Thanks, Vipin. Thanks, Neeraj.
Okay.
It's really a wonderful
Okay.
session.
Yes, and everyone, if you have any questions, all of your questions are welcome. You can write your questions in the Q&A. We will try to answer all those questions. Thanks,
Okay,
everyone.
yeah. So yeah, before Lalit takes it over, I'll be soon opening the Q&A again. You guys can post your questions, and please make sure the questions are relevant to the today's topic only. We will be covering all the other topics that is actually part of this exam. So those questions that you have for different other topics can be posted in the next upcoming sessions. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Lalit, you can take over.
Thanks, Ashish. Yeah, I'm just sharing my screen. Let me know if you're able to view. You able to view my screen? Ashish, you are able
Yes,
to view my
Lalit.
screen?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
Yes, Lalit.
yes,
Yeah.
it's visible.
Okay. Thank you so much. So as Vipin is talked about the roles and even Neeraj has talked about the role, and there is couple of questions on the what the difference between, right, in terms of what is an Active Directory role in terms of the subscription role. So I'll be defining both of those roles, like how we can provide the access to the users. So here, if you can see this Active Directory role, so Active Directory role basically it works on your tenant level, on your directory level. Let's just say if you wanted to register some applications to your directory, whereas if you have already an applications which is there in your subscriptions, but let's just say if you wanted to register that applications for the authentications prospects to this particular directory, you would need an applications administrator role, right? So whatever the role, and both the roles are segregated. The subscription role which works on the role based access control, whereas you will be having the owner, contributor, and the reader role. Whereas in if you see in directory, right, you have a applications administrator, applications developer to authenticator, including the compliance management role will not come into your subscriptions parts. It is your on the tenant basis, right? So if you have a multiple of subscriptions, you if you have this particular role, still you will be able to manage the compliance data. Like similarly, if you have associated in Office 365 or Teams, kind of those services with the same tenant, including those roles will also be here in this particular directory, right? So this is what about the directory roles which we have in Azure. That let's just say how you're going to assign those roles to the user based on the requirement, right? So what I'll do is let's just I have Neeraj Kumar, right? So I'll just go to his profile, and if I wanted to assign any of the role, this is a directory, and it's really relevant to this particular role assignment. So what I'll do is I'll just click on the role assignment here. I'll click on the role assignment, and then whatever the role I wanted to give this access to the Neeraj. Let's just say I'll just give this particular role to Neeraj, application administrator. Here you can see the descriptions as well based on your role. Let's just say you can create, manage, and all the applications registration and enterprise applications, right? Even we have this user administrator role. You can see, right, the user administrator role who can manage, create the users, delete the users in the directory, and invite the users, whereas that is not possible when you in terms of you're going on the subscriptions level, right? So I'll just give these two particular roles to the Neeraj. So you can see, right, this role we not automatically assign to him, right? Whereas if you can see, right, there is a difference between this is the assigned role which is a directory role, and there is the assigned role which is the subscription role, right? So you can see there are two different roles. So this is the first role which I have assigned to Neeraj, and the second role which I have already given the access to Neeraj a couple of days back is a contributor to my subscriptions, right? And both the roles will works independently, right? But in subscriptions, what happen, like as that subscriptions comes under the tenant, it will follow the same hierarchy. So until unless your users will not be there in the Active Directory, you will not be able to assign any of the subscription role to your users. So first you have to invite as an, or you have to create, or you have to invite as a guest user, and you have to provide the permissions into the subscriptions, right? Until unless that user will not be there in your directory, you will not be able to assign any of the permissions. And even Bipin is beautifully defined that what is the, how you're going to create the new users, or how you're defining the guest users, right? And so this is the major difference. Let's just look out on the subscriptions part in terms of RBAC, right? Just give me a 1 minute. Now, how did I come here? I'll just, search for the subscriptions here, and I'll just, once I'll click on the subscriptions part, I'll click on the one of the subscriptions which I would like to invite someone, or we just going to, talk about the uh, role of those particular RBAC role, which is in role-based access control, right? So role-based access control, there's a three default role, which is owner, contributor, and the reader. Whereas in, if we give the owner role, right, he will be able to create the resources, even invite the users. Whereas if we can give the contributor role, he will just administrate complete subscriptions or the specific resources, but he will not be able to invite any of the users, right? And the third one is the reader. It's just a viewer role for your information, right? So just, view the resources, understand, let's just say if you wanted to give the access to the L1 team to check the health of the services and kind of other stuff, so you can, provide the reader role. Whereas an administrator can be given the access to administrate and create the resources within the subscriptions, whereas owner who can, invite the users or provide the permissions. So that is only the one specific difference between the contributor and the owner. Let's just say if I wanted to define some of the role, let's just say there are three different role, right? User, contributor, and owner, contributor, and reader. But apart from that, those role being segregated based on the services. Let's just say if I wanted to give the arc delete, right? Or let's just say we'll just take out the storage parts, right? Here is in, for this particular storage, you have a multiple of role, whereas a classic storage account contributor. So only the storage account contributor role will be given to this particular users. So he will be able to manage the storage accounts, none of other services, right? Even if we give this only the blob data owner, he will be able to modify the data which is there in the blob, though even he cannot modify anything within the storage accounts. So you can see that the segregations of roles are wider. Even we can give the data reader role, right? Similarly to that, if I wanted to, invite any one of the, roles, let's just say I wanted to invite someone as a reader role, or so as what I can do is I'll just say put in my ID, right? At the rate, right? And then I'll just click here and I'll click on save, right? And once I'll click on save, the link and everything, I'll be receiving an email that you have been invited for this particular directory, and you have to go and accept the invitation. And there's an invitations link size. So I have to just go to this particular link, which even I will be receiving on the email, but I have logged in from the different ID. So I just do not mess up with the lab, right? So I'm not going to sign in, but just you go there, sign up, accept the terms and conditions, and you are in. The roles will be assigned to you, right? Apart from that, what is other role assignment, like how you can see that what are the roles, or what are the users as what roles in your organizations, right? You can click on this role assignment, right? Here you have all the roles who has what are those, like let's just say Neeraj has contributor, Vipin has the contributor role, I have the reader role, and then this is the user access administrator, right? This is the new role which been introduced by Microsoft. What is this role does is, though even if you wanted to manage the users or their access, right? It is the first that you can, give it this access from the subscriptions, right? So that you can, if you just click on here, right, here is an add role assignment, and then you can, if you have to have some custom roles, you can do that. So if I'll just click here and I'll search for the user admin, right? You can see this user access administrator role, right? So this for only to let you the manage the user access and their resources, right? So this is a another apart from this owner, contributor, and reader, there is the another role which been introduced by Microsoft recently. So that is what about the difference between the Active Directory role as well as in your subscriptions role, right? That's the first part. The second layer which we are taking a look on this, the Azure subscriptions policies, right? So what I'll do is I'll just click on the policies here, and I have already signed a couple of policies, right? So whenever just you click on those policies, it will be showing my compliant level, right? So I have non-compliant resources, audit, these are the policies which I have been deployed. These are the ACS data protection policies which I have been compliant, right? If you wanted to look it in deep drive, like I'll just click here, you will be into the inside the resources, and what are the resources which does have, like I have a one resources which is not compliant, right? And let's just see what is this resources, right? That resource is my this particular resource group, right? So even you can just click here and then you can go to this particular resources and find out what are those issues are there, what are the policies you need, or probably you wanted to upload or update any of the tags and kind of other stuffs, right? So let's just go. And there's another one is if you wanted to get a start with the policies, there's a beautiful documents are here. You just go and get those, read it out, understand. So what the policies does is, as Neeraj rightly explained, it's basically manage your compliance, audits, and control your environment, like based on your policies, how you wanted to do it. If you wanted to look out some of the policies which is in preview, let's just say Kubernetes policies are in preview, and you wanted to opt in, just click on just opt in. You will be able to opt those policies. I have already opted in, so I'll just show you those policies. Then it is comes with the compliance part, right? So same as an overview will get, like after how many resources, what are the policies being compliant. These are couple of policies which has a compliance level, right? There's a 3 non-compliant resources are there. There's 1 and 1. So that's where you can just go get those reports, understand what are the policies you have, what are the resources, either the backup is not there or the lock is not there, or based on that has been created somewhere else, right? All of those reports you will be receiving here. And then if you wanted to remediate those things, you'll come here, and then the tenant group and kind of other stuff you can just select and understand the what are the policies you wanted to remediate, what are the remediation tasks you wanted to put in. Apart from that, what is the definitions of those particular policies, and then I'll come into the assignments part, right? Here is you have the initiative definitions, whereas I have already created the multiple initiatives definitions. So here, if you just click on initiative definitions, right, then you can define this particular locations. Here is I have already a management group. I'll come into that part a little bit later. So if I wanted to apply this particular policies on the tenant group label, I can just select, right, the name of the policies, right? Here is the the policies which is allowed, which is there. Let's just say I wanted to get and configure this Azure backup to be enabled for my VMs, right? And I'll just say it's an Azure backup, or as an allowed locations is also I wanted to put in, right? So what I'll do is I'll put those policies. So both the policies in there. So what it is doing in initiate definitions, it is creating the groups, right, for your multiple policies. Whether you want an audit not exist or you wanted to disable. Audit not exist, what it is, right? Let's just say if you apply this particular policies, right? And based on your audit, it'll just say whether the services can be, that locations would be allowed or not, and kind of other stuff. So it will give you an error. And the same way, it will, and you can, select the locations right here. So what I'll do is I'll just enable this, and then I'll just select the couple of locations where it's in, east to west and then east to west too, right? And I will be able to only deploy those particular locations because I'm just selecting only to allow this particular two locations. And the first one is for the backup, whereas the backup, if the backup is not available, it will just report to your compliance board. But this allowed locations, what it does is it will only allow to this two particular locations, right? So I'm just initiating this definitions, but I'm not defining any of the policies, right? So policy definitions is one of the one where you can, import the policies from the GitHub, or you can define your own policies. Like you can say there is, how you wanted to define those policies, or you can, import the policies from the GitHub, right? If you wanted to add additional policies and kind of other stuffs, and then where you wanted to define either on the tenant level, group level, or the subscriptions level, right? Let's just go and get implement this particular assignment for this policies. We have already get this one, and then let's just get and assign the policies here. So I'll just select the scope, right? Let's just say, let's just put it into the tenant level. I'll just select here. Now this is an exclusion. Let's just say if I wanted to put an exclusions for one subscriptions, under that one particular subscriptions, if I wanted to put any of the resource group where I will be deploying any of the resources that I wanted to exclude, that I can do that, right? And here you can add this particular things to the scope. So you can see this is the subscriptions and this is the training part which I will be excluding. So for the demo, I'm not excluding any of those steps. I'll just leave this as a blank, right? Then I'll be defining this policies. You can see you have a 478 policies here, whereas I'll just say allowed locations, whereas custom, right? I'll put in, and I'll just say allowed locations, right? And I'll click on review and create. It's just review that whether your policy is in there, and it should be in the tenant level. I'll just go click on create. Okay. So here, just missed to add those two locations, right? And I'll go get created. It will take a couple of minutes, so it's getting some error. Let's just put it on the subscriptions level then. Only for these subscriptions. Okay. Select. And no, sorry. I'll put the parameter to east-west. Not sure if this policy is already available. Because I do lot of R&D on that part. Okay, right. So my policies and the assignments been created for this particular subscriptions. Let's just go and get create some resources or any of the resource group, right? Any of this. Let's just say I'm creating one resource group, which is quick, easy, right? And this, and I'll just say deploy and Southeast Asia. This resource name is AzureTalk, right? And then okay. So now I think it will take some time to implement the policies, but it is just allowing it, right? So that's where you can just go ahead, you define your policies in terms of wanted to allowed locations or the tags and all, right? And this is where the complete policies, which where you can manage the compliance part. Okay, so the policies, it seems, is not yet started. So that will take some time to get a start. Right. So that's where you can assign your policies and all the stuffs, right? So the next one will just look out what is the cost management part and how you're going to defining your cost managements, right? So I'll just click on the cost managements, or you can what you can do is you'll just go to the subscriptions right here and click on this whatever the subscriptions you have. So I have already went to this particular one subscriptions, right? And I'll click on this cost analysis, and which I have already opened it here, right? So once you click on the cost analysis, what it does is, right, it will have your complete month of cost, whereas you'll have in Azure firewall, I'll have in app services, for VPN gateway how much you're paying for all of those stuffs, right? Even if you wanted to download those particular report, or you wanted to look out for couple of months reports for the last year, this year, all those reports been downloaded. Like you can select those reports and you will be able to download all of those reports. Apart from that, if you wanted to look out those things into the details, like how you can do that, so you can click into the settings and click on exports here. So you can export this complete report to your particular you can download those reports, you can enable those particular reports right here. If you wanted to export on a monthly basis, or the weekly report you wanted to configure, I'll just say weekly report, right? And just say, right. Okay, and then I have to configure this storage account. So I'll just make sure what is the container is talk, right? And the directory path for this, I'll just say talk, right? I'll just click on next and get created, right? So that's where I'm going and scheduling my reports. It will just go verify all of those storage accounts and other stuffs, right? And then it will get created those things. If you wanted to set up an alert, let's just say your organization's consumption is literally high, and you wanted to put it some things on which is there in your on the budgeted one, right? So what you can do is, right, you can click on the add alerts right here. You can select this particular either the management group, or you can change in scope, or select the subscriptions, right? You can select this particular resource group, and under that the particular resource group you wanted to select, or just select in subscriptions, right? That you can do that. Then you have to give the particular unique name for your alerts. So you can say budget alerts, right? It could not be any space, right? So when you want from July to June, or like whatever the month you wanted to select, and the 30 days once you want this estimations, and let's just say the amount would be your your budgeted amount for a month. Let's just say I'll just say 5,000, right? Now this is my budgeted amount. What I'll do is in the next I'll be setting up the alert conditions. When my 40%, right, of 5k, when it is reaches to 2k amount, it should give in alert. Whereas in I'll select an action group. So in the action group, it is coming up into the monitoring part, but where is your email IDs will be there. Apart from that, the alert email IDs you can configure here. Let's just say, right? And whereas you just go and get create this particular things. And once it is reaches to the 5 2K, it will just send out me an alert. Hey, you will be reaching to your, particular budget or particular alert. So based on your alerting systems, you'll get those particular, budgeting alerts, and where you can, go and configure, right? So you can see here in budget, this is budget alert will be created. Apart from that, right, if you wanted to see the cost, in terms of resources, because uh, in my couple of projects, my manager told, okay, I need this particular SQL service cost, how much it is charging, right? How you can identify? Either you have to download, but let's just say he's just giving you the 10 minutes, right? How are you going to identify? So even you have to go to download the Excel, create the reports, and you have to do all those steps. Apart from that, what you can do is just click on the cost by resources. Once you click on the cost by resources, all the resources cost, right, will be segregated in this particular. Even you can download that as well, or if you wanted to copy and paste also, you can do it. And now what you can do, if you wanted to search for, let's just say, app services, right? I'll click on app. So whatever the app services plan which I have created, or app gateway I have created, so it's app services plan which I have created, it cost me this much, right? So you can, get those particular things, right? The second part is for each and every services. Okay, let's just say if I have a VM, right? This is the particular disk which been, charged. But let's just say if I have a virtual machines, this is VM1. Inside it, okay, how much I'm charging, right? Whatever the, Microsoft is getting charged for that. For VMs which is run on this particular series, the cost would be charged 4.26 rupees, right? Whereas in bandwidth charges, network pairing charges, virtual network, and the bandwidth, here is no disk is there because I have just deleted this particular VM. Let's just say I have one more VM which is called an AzureTalk, right? Or the best in services, how I've been charged. For the basic, it is 260 rupees, 263, right? For till now, it's from the today's, or you can say, right? So this is where you can have the public IP cost, right? How much we are charging. So for each and every services, you'll get the cost, whereas it is, segregated in such a way. Even if you wanted to, set up the invoice, you can just get those things over there, right? And then you can have the invoicing and kind of other stuffs, right? So all of those things you can manage from the cost. And if there's a preview portal which gives you the, billing menu items, and then kind of other stuffs you wanted to, analyze on those, you'll just click on preview, go to preview portal, right? So it's just you have all the preview features which will be coming up and available, right? So the cost managements, the views will be, getting changed over here, right? So you can just look out all of those stuffs here. The you can see the Azure reservations, right, as well. How many reservations you have bought it, and all of those stuffs, right? The configurations part of it, right? The budget you wanted to export, you wanted to know the partner informations you wanted to put in. So if you are a partner, the IDs will be here for your partner IDs, right? All of those things will be there. Let's just go back to the subscriptions, right? So this is where how you're going to manage this particular cost management, right? Now what we can do, we'll just, look out on the lock part, right? How the resource locks will be there, and how you can protect from your, human interventions. We are the human side, we can do a lot of mistakes, but once it is the portal, we just, go and click the delete. By mistake also, if you delete, there's a lot of services which cannot be recovered, right? So only the storage account can be recovered if you have a backup, or if you have a replication spot, but there's so many other services which cannot be recovered. So what I'll do is I'll just go and get create one lock here, right? So what I'll do is I'll just create the lock on this particular storage account. I'll just search for lock. There are two types of lock. One is read only lock, another one is delete only lock. So what I'll do is I'll just put first read only lock, right? And then R and D, and let's click OK. And what we can do, I'll just try and modify some things, right? Okay, so there is an access key. I'm just going and regenerating this access key, right? 1 minute. think it is. So it is even not allowing because or let's just see in the configurations parts, we just the secure transfer I'm just getting disabled. I'll just click on yes. So you can see, right, it is just getting failed because I have put the read only lock. So whereas if you have running some of the production environment which you wanted to protect from, no one can be changed, only the persons who has a proper rights who can remove the locks which is requires an owner permissions can able to modify. So anytimes, right, you have to remove the locks and able to do those things. So I'll click on lock and I'll just get delete this one. I'll create in one more lock. So the locks can be assigned on a subscription level as well as your resource group level. So I'll just say DND, do not delete. I'll click on OK, which is it will protect for your deletions of your any of the services. I'll click on delete, right? And it just say because of this lock, you must remove the lock and you will not be able to delete. The second part is which we are talking about is tags, right? How this tags will help you. So let's just say if I have some tags for AzureTalk sessions which is already there, if you wanted to identify, you wanted to protect the resources, all of those, let's just say I just put an owner, right? Or let's just say session, right, is equal to AzureTalk demo. So this is where I can have those particular logs, right, to be get configured, and how it will help you in your cost management. Let me just bring in here in the cost resources, right? So the tag you can see, right, those are the tags will be available here, right? These are the tags which applied on this particular storage account, right? You can have those multiple tags as well, so you can see those things into this particular costing as well, and you can segregate if you search for tags, right? Let's just say project, or let me just right, there is multiple tags, right? You can say owner is a Kubernetes when I just created this Kubernetes services and kind of other storage, right? So all of those tags will be there, and this is the cost from July 1st to the 31st. If you want to look it for the previous month or the this month completely, it just give you 30 days of cost, right? And you can get those things done. This is what about the particular those services and the resources, resource log, policies, and the cost management. And let me just see if I'm missing anything, right? And right, how are you going to managing the subscriptions? I'll just walk you through a quick. I'll just click on the subscriptions management, right? I'll click on this particular subscriptions, right? Here, even whatever the invoices you have from the billing prospects, all the invoices will be here. If you wanted to receive via email, you just click on receive via email, right? And what are the payment methods you will be utilizing, whether it is in with the partners, and if you are using any of the credit cards, any of those things, right? For me, is just this is the method which I will be utilizing, right? The partner informations will come here, right? Apart from that, the two things which is really important, the usage and the quota, right? So every subscriptions has their limitations, whereas in based on your usage and then quota, right, by default for services for in one subscriptions and in the one region you will only able to deploy a one network voucher, right? Apart from that, there's a VMs which is the hard limit for virtual machines for 10,000 cores. But if you can see in my particular the subscriptions, I'll have 25,000 cores to be enabled because I have just raised in request and get it, and those cores would be based on your particular resources. So there is a soft limit as well as the hard limit. Soft limit which is comes with the subscriptions, whereas in hard limit which is you can raise and request with the Microsoft when you're done with this particular limit, and you can get increase, right? Apart from that, you have a resource provider. A few of the services which you do not register, like there's a multiple services which you cannot register, and if you don't have the appropriate rights to get registered, you have the particular resource group access, then you will not be able to create until unless it will go and get registered from the Microsoft end. And if you wanted to register this particular classic, or let's just say I just wanted to register this container instance, I'll just click on register right here, and it will take a couple more minutes to get registered, right? I just status change to registering, right? And where is this? Yep. So this status change to instant will take 5-10 minutes to get those things done, right? Even if you wanted to apply the resource lock from the subscription, yes, you can put this, DND lock on this particular resource group, right? And this is where if you wanted to manage your permissions and you wanted to, certifications to be managed, all those certifications you can, what certifications are getting expired and all of those stuffs we can manage here, right? So all of those things which we have done in this compliance parts, which is really important for your the subscriptions managements, where you can save your resources for accidentally deletions, for auditing, for compliance, and securing your subscriptions and the resources in terms of your Active Directory role, in terms of your RBAC role, so you can provide the permissions to the users. What are the permissions they require, right? Based on, you can, let's say for the L1 you wanted to give it as a reader access, whereas in a couple of other admins you wanted to give the contributor access, right? So the default access, like whenever you create some of the subscriptions with whatever the IDs, it has the default access for the global administrator as well as the subscription owner or the user access administrator for both this is. Apart from that, whatever the users been allowed or invited by this particular users, the rules can be defined to this particular. If you wanted to modify also, I think you will be able to modify later once you invite the users and all. So Neeraj and Ashish, I'm done with the demo part. Let me just see if I'm missing anything. No. Yep. So that's
Yeah,
where you can manage the cost and all. Yep.
yeah, thanks, Lalit. It was really informational demo. So yeah, Neeraj, do you have something to share, or should we conclude the session for today?
Yeah, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, so I just want to quickly just let me share my desktop.
Yep.
So I just quickly want to thank everyone, for joining our session today. And if you want to be in touch with us, please do use the URLs, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. So my LinkedIn profile is mentioned on the slide, so you can connect with us. You can connect with Vipin, and you can also connect with Lalit. Plus, you keep an eye on our website, azureeasy.com. We will be publishing all these sessions are getting recorded, and it will be published on our YouTube channel, which is YouTube Azure Talk. But make sure that keep an eye on azureeasy.com. We will publish the slides. We will publish the recording, and we will publish all the details. Plus, you will also find information about our Telegram groups on our website, which is azureeasy.com. And we will continue with these sessions in future also. So what I want to do, Ashish, is maybe we can quickly, we still have 10 minutes. We can take some questions and answers, probably if we can. Um,
So yeah, so let's do one thing. I'll be opening the question Q&A for for next 2 or 3 minutes, and we will be selecting questions, and I'll be putting it up, to you, and then we can answer it on the audio itself. Right?
sure.
Yep. So yeah, guys, I'm opening up the Q&A section. You guys can put your questions. Please make sure you put your questions related to today's agenda. And yes, okay, these sessions are overwhelming. Yeah, thank you. Okay. On-prem AD permissions. Does it sync? Okay, thank you. We are getting appreciated. So yeah, thank you so much. We are happy that you guys are liking and it is helping everyone. So I'm still waiting for some questions.
And I see a lot of questions, and like, we have limited time. We have more than 160
Right,
questions.
right. So yeah.
In fact,
Right.
211 questions, right? So what we are planning to do is, if in case we are unable to answer your questions, do check out our Telegram channel, t.me/AzureTalk. Go and join that
Okay,
channel.
so
Post your
we have
questions.
one question, which is pretty much something every new person will ask. What is the best strategy to digest all the content and learn efficiently? So this is,
Sure.
something
So
everyone will
what
relate with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so usually the strategy that I personally prefer is, right. So there are two kind of learning: guided learning and self-learning. Now, these sessions that we are doing is a kind of guided learning for you, where we can guide you and like we can show you exactly. But that's one part of the learning concept. Now, after guided learning, you should go and do self-learning in terms of doing hands-on practice with your Azure subscription, doing read on Microsoft website or Microsoft Learn to reinforce what you have learned from us. We cannot make you an expert in these sessions. These sessions are to help you set you on the right path, but the actual walk you have to do, the actual sprint, actual run you have to do. That means after this, you become aware of what other topics are there, what other features are there. Now you have seen it, you have been there. Now it's your turn to start that journey. So after attending these sessions, every weekend we have these sessions. I would say, on the weekdays, spend time going on Microsoft Learn and learn about, the topics that we have covered. Try to do hands-on, and try to engage with community. Go and join our Azure Talk. Question, answer your people questions. If you have questions, you post there. Read the responses. That's how you will learn and reinforce the learning that you're getting out of these sessions. Yeah, that's what Ashish. Is there a next question? Ashish, you there?
Yeah. I wasn't good. So yeah, there are a lot of questions. I just put the Q&A for hold so that I can pick some of the thing that is existing. And yes, guys, if we are not able to cover any of the question, please join our Telegram group. Put your questions over there because some of the questions are so technical that we might not be able to explain everything within few minutes. So yeah, you can put it there. We will be trying. Everyone will be trying to answer there, including our speakers, as well as there are a lot many experts, more than 7K. I mean 7,000. So the next question is, okay, let me just pick something which can be related to many people. What is the time frame for sync from on-prem to Azure AD?
So, it's every 30 minutes, and the synchronization frequency when you configure Azure AD Connect, there are ways to modify that, but I think by default 30 minutes. And Lalit or Vipin, if you want to confirm that on the frequency of Azure AD Connect synchronization time.
But it's 30 minutes, right?
Yeah, so that's a 30 minutes.
Okay, so and there are so many questions about upcoming sessions, as in like what are the tracks we are going to cover. So guys, just to reiterate that currently we are open for AZ-900 and AZ-104. We already have lined up for a architect track and DevOps track that will be soon opening for registration, probably next month, like in August. And then after completing those two tracks, DevOps and Architect, we will be looking into the other tracks if possible, or we will be trying to see what are the other topics that we can cover as a webinar. So definitely we are going to continue this interactive session because we are really getting a good response from all of you guys. So yeah, I mean right now AZ-104, AZ-900, if you have not registered for any of these sessions, I mean all these sessions for these tracks, definitely go ahead and register for all the sessions, because each session consists different topic. So if you want to cover all the topics for 104, you need to register for all the 8 sessions of 104. First session we have covered today. There will be 7 upcoming sessions of 104. Similarly, we have 3 sessions for 900. We have already covered 1 session, so there will be 2 more sessions for 900. So if you want to take, you want to take the exam for 900, then you need to attend or watch all these 3 sessions. And we are going to record all these sessions. We are going to publish all these recordings on your YouTube, on our YouTube channel, and it will take some time, because as you know, it will take some time to process all the information and upload it there. So it will take next 2-3 days. But yes, join our Telegram group. We will be posting updates over there. We will be posting updates on the LinkedIn, and we will be posting updates to the registered participant on the from the Eventbrite as well. So yeah, please register to get all the information about this. So because we are getting a lot of questions there. So just last one question, because I think we are almost about to
just adding one point to Ashish what you said. So if you have not, please do register on, go to azure.com, EZY.com. There you have all the details, registration link, everything. And plus also, if you feel that there are people who will be benefited by these sessions, they lost their job because of coronavirus and COVID, and they are looking for reskilling themselves and they don't have money to spare to go to expensive institutes and pay from their pocket, ask them to head out to azure.com, which is again, to our website, and ask them to register there onto the website. So that they can also get benefit.
Okay, yeah, right. So yeah, one last question, and probably this is also something many people will relate with. There is a question that, Neeraj, can we have something that we can share with audience, that can we get more assignment for practice purpose? So something we can share in the end of the session, so that people who are kind of learning here over week, they can try something on freely available resources. And maybe you can open up about this aspect, because this is very, very important if people are trying to write the exam. So attending session must be followed up with the study, right? Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, that's a good suggestion. In fact, we have planned. I mean, since this is our first session.
We can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Fine.
Sorry. I said, yes, we do have plans, and since this is our first session, so what we will do is at the end of this session, not maybe first, but from subsequent session, I think it's a good idea. We will share some material that you can go and read on, which is available for public, like on Microsoft Learn, and we will also point out to some of the lab which you can do, and obviously for that you will require a subscription. So that's something you can we can certainly do that. So it's a good suggestion, and yes, we can share the read up materials, and also we can share some labs that people can attempt.
Okay, so I think we are, at exactly on time, so we are able to finish all the content. So thank you so much, everyone. We will be having session on Saturday, next Saturday on AG900. So if you guys are already registered, then definitely you will be getting an email about it. And if you have not registered, and if you are planning to take that exam, then please go ahead and register. We have all the information on the on the website, and that website link is already on the screen. And we have the next session of AG-104 on the next Sunday. The next session will cover the follow-up topics of the same training track. So it will be a different session altogether, which will cover a different aspect of the same training. So make sure if you are planning to get the complete training, you need to attend all these sessions, so that you can you can get all the information about this particular track. So having said that, let's conclude this for today, and keep posting your questions in the group. we will try to answer everything, and let's have a learning together. Yeah, thank you so much. Have a great
All right,
day.
thank you,
Yeah, I mean,
Ashish. Thank you,
yeah.
everyone, and I really appreciate everyone and for joining, and especially on the weekends, right?
Yeah.
I really want to take a minute to really thank all the participants for making this really successful. We received a huge response. On our opening session, we had more than 2,000 members watching our sessions live, and today also we had a phenomenal number, more than 800, around 1,000 people watching our session. So it's really great to see such a response, and we will make sure that we keep these sessions engaging and meaningful for the participants, and so that it can really help you build a career in cloud, and we are committed to it. We will take every feedback very seriously. If you have any feedback, you can also drop a note, info@azurez.com, or you can also drop a note on Telegram group, or onto our website. Anywhere, just feel free to contact us, and we'll be more than happy to look into those and improve our delivery. So once again, thank you everyone for joining, and I really want to thank Lalit, Ashish, and Vipin, and all our Azure Talk core group team member. It wouldn't have been possible without you guys. You guys all came together and put these sessions together. So I'm really thankful to all of you. It's a team effort, and I really appreciate all the effort that you are putting in. And I also appreciate the audiences, joining our session and being the session is a 3 hour long session. I know it's really long. So I want to thank everyone. And with that, we will conclude the session. Thank you, and have a great weekend, or maybe weekdays. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Bye bye.